Hey, I'm Breelyn Van Leeuwen. You can call me Bree. I am a physician assistant. PA is the short version of that. And I have a website, www.herestohealthywomen.com, an Instagram account by the same name, at Here's to Healthy Women. And I just recently started a Snapchat with the same name, Here's to Healthy Women. The purpose of my blog is to educate women of, you know, all ages and ethnicities and social economic status to help give them the proper education to take care of their bodies and to be able to ask the right questions when they go in to see their provider. I think that was a very frustrating part of practicing. It is a very frustrating part of practicing medicine is sometimes people don't know the basics. They don't know what kinds of questions to ask or what kind of information is applicable. So that is the purpose of the blog. I've loved doing it so far. I just barely started and trying to figure it out. I'm not a very tech-oriented person, so I'm not going to be doing a lot of editing of this. So what it is here is what it will be. I'm not going to edit it because I don't like to and don't really know how. So, okay, the point of this video is to answer some questions for my pre-PA students and maybe people who are not quite pre-PA yet, but who are maybe thinking about being a PA. When I was going through this process, I would have really appreciated something like this because I just didn't have anyone to ask. I didn't know how to really connect with any PAs out there to shadow or ask questions about the job itself. I didn't have any connections to it, so this would have been a really nice thing. So hopefully this is helpful for all of those that group of my readers. So I asked you guys on my accounts for some questions that you guys had, and I got a lot of really good ones, and I kept getting the same ones over and over again, which is good. So that means a lot of you are wondering the same thing. So let's just dive into it. First question, why I chose to be a PA over an MD. Great question. I get this question all the time from my patients. The worst is when the patient will say, so when are you going to finish? When are you going to go back to school and finish? And, I'm not planning on doing that. Was my end goal, and I'm very proud of it. I love the profession, and I don't have any desire to go back and get my MD or DO. So why did I choose, sorry, my computer just went dark. Hopefully it's back on. Why did I choose to be a PA? I always wanted to be a doctor from the time I was a little girl. Just always, always, always. And then as life went on and I worked really hard in high school. I got my associate's degree when I graduated from high school. I was on the honor roll. I had a full ride scholarship through undergrad. And I was pre-med. That was another question. My undergraduate degree was actually in English. I couldn't get a degree in pre-med at the University of Utah where I studied. So my degree was in English, but I also had all of the prerequisite fulfillments for the pre-med requirements, basically. So I did everything I needed to apply to medical school. All the tests and the community service, the leadership, the lab experience, the research, the clinical experience, every single class that I needed to get, I did. I did it all. It was a lot of work, and I'm proud of myself for doing it. And luckily, the same requirements are there for PA as they are for pre-med, mostly. So it worked out in my favor. But I always wanted to go to medical school. Just my whole life I wanted to be a doctor. Just when I was a little girl even, just always. So when the time actually came down to applying, I don't know how to explain it other than to say that I just was filled with a lot of anxiety about my decision to go to medical school. I think the reality of it set in that it would be 4 years of schooling, plus whatever residency I chose, and I started doing the math and realizing that I'd be 33 by the time I was finished, and I didn't know if I wanted to start a family at 33, and even at that point, I got, all of this information about how much my loans would be, and then the decision of, okay, so I'm 33 and I'm done. I could start having a family at 33, but then past that, I'd have to work so long. I'd have to be full time for a very long time to pay off my loans. It just wasn't the right fit for me. And I don't know how else to explain it other than to say that. And I don't want to bash anyone who's chosen to go to medical school, any female or male, anyone who's chosen to go to medical school. I think I mean, without doctors, I wouldn't be here. So it's a very honorable and wonderful thing to do. It just wasn't the right fit for me and for what I pictured from my life. I knew that I wanted to be the person to raise my kids. I didn't want to have a nanny. I didn't want to have to work full time. I wanted the option of working part time. And it just, at the end of the day, when it came down to it, and push came to shove, I love medicine. I love it. It's a passion. I love it, but I didn't love it enough to sacrifice the other. And I think that's what it comes down to, is deciding sort of the big picture goals and what it looks like for you, 10, 20 years down the road. So again, every person has their own decision, and every person's going to choose a path that works best for them. But first and foremost, for me, I wanted to be a mother. I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to be a wife, obviously, first, and then I wanted to be a really great mother. And if I could somehow work out having a professional career in medicine along the way, that was, of course, secondary to being a mom, and that was just how it worked for me. And I that's why I chose it. That's why I chose to be a PA over an MD. The next question was, why did I choose to be a PA over a nurse practitioner? Also a very good question. Let me tell you the big distinct differences. If you ever plan on owning your own practice, of starting your own clinic, if you want to practice completely independently, nurse practitioner is the route for you. That's the way that you should go. And PAs are also able to start clinics, but it's a little bit more difficult because we're always under the supervision of a physician. So we have to have that piece of it in order for us to practice. So if you wanted to start your own clinic, for example, you would have to employ a physician to be over you, basically. So if that is one of your end goals, then nurse practitioner is a great fit for you. That was never something that I wanted to do. I don't have any plans or hopes to do that. So that was an easy decision. And then the second thing was I knew that I wanted to train in a medical model versus a nursing model. So nurse practitioners and PAs are trained differently. Nurse practitioners are trained in the nursing model. PAs are trained in the medical model. That was a big difference for me as well. And I wasn't a nurse already. I think if maybe I was already a nurse, maybe I would have gone towards nurse practitioner. That may have made more sense, but I wasn't. So the shorter schooling for a PA was obviously very appealing. I didn't have to go through nursing school and then be a nurse practitioner. I could just go right into PA school. So that was obviously very appealing. Okay, next question was loans. How much student loan debt did I incur during PA school? So I took out the maximum amount of student loans, which I think came out to be 120 something thousand, maybe 130,000 by the time I graduated, because thanks to Obama, there are no subsidized loans. So the second you take out those loans, they start accruing interest right then. So, so that was a mistake. I wish that I wouldn't have taken out the max amount of loans. That was what I was instructed to do, because they said, you don't want to worry about money. We actually couldn't have a job in PA school. I think most PA programs are like this. I can only speak to the one that I went to, but we were literally not able to be in their PA program and have a job. It just wasn't something that they allowed. Their recommendation was to take out the max amount of loans so you wouldn't have to worry about money, which I regret, because the second you take those out, you start accruing interest, and the interest isn't, a couple dollars a month, it's a few $100s a month. So my advice about the loans is you take out the very, very, very least you possibly can, and it isn't the time to eat organic and have this dreamy apartment somewhere. This is the time to live very frugally. You're never going to be in your apartment. You're always going to be at school, and eat ramen, for a year or 2 years. That would be my recommendation. um, so I took out the max amount of loans. I didn't use all the money, so I put some of it back. But of course, like I said, the interest had already accrued, so that was something that I regret. And that would be advice. Anytime someone comes to shadow me as an undergrad student, that's always the advice that I give them. Be very cautious with your loans. Choose a PA school that has a very, if you have options and you're trying to decide between the two of them, considering tuition is a big part of that choice. Choose a school with a low tuition, because those loans are real. They follow you your whole life, and as soon as you graduate, you are expected to start making payments. And it's not, just a number anymore. It's real money. And like I said, the interest rate on my loans is ridiculous. Was ridiculous. I have them paid now, but I think 6.8% was one of them. 7.2 I think was my highest one. My grad pluses were 7.2. I don't think I had a loan that was less than 6% interest. And if you aren't great at math, or you don't know what that means I was accruing hundreds of dollars of interest a month in my loans. So really consider that. It's an investment of not only your time and your energy, but it's a financial investment. Even though you're not going to medical school, PA school is a financial investment. I mean, you're going to be in at least 60, 70, upward, 60,000, 70,000 and up. I have friends who graduated with the combination of their undergraduate loans and their graduate loans. They're in 150,000. And that was before interest kicked in. So, you really need to take that into consideration and watch those loans. It's not just monopoly money. And I think there's this idea that, there's all these payback programs, there's humanitarian programs, and there's outreach programs and military and all these things that will pay your loans back. To a degree, that is true. There are some options for that, but it doesn't work for everybody. And there's a small portion of people that it actually works for. And I wouldn't count on any of that. I wouldn't plan on any of that. So be smart. Take out the least amount of loans you can to get by with. Don't live out of a box, obviously, but take out the least amount of loans you can. Choose a school that has a low tuition. Next question I got was my specialty, what I specialized in and why I chose it. So my specialty is in urology. That is the study of the urinary tract system. So the upper urinary tract down on through the lower urinary tract. So the kidneys down on through the urethra. That's my specialty. I chose it because I loved surgery. When I was in my didactic year of PA school, meaning, when I was in my rotation year of PA school, I fell in love with surgery. I worked with a fantastic general surgeon, Bruce Hill, who was just a great teacher, and he was exciting and taught me so much about medicine and about the operating room and let me be such a huge part of it. And I was just really grateful for that. And I had a really great experience in surgery, so I knew that's what I wanted to do. But at the same time, general surgery is just the craziest. The hours are so crazy. You never really quite know when you're going to be home. Long days, which I think if I don't know, in a different circumstance, if I didn't have children or I wasn't married, would have been awesome. But I was married at the time and was planning on having children, so I just knew the lifestyle didn't work well for me. So Dr. Hill connected me with a urologist, McKay Platt, who is my supervising physician that I work for. He is a fantastic human being who, when we met to discuss if I would work with him or not, said, look, I'm going to give you, try it out for a month. I can guarantee you it's the funniest specialty. It's the funnest specialty. And if you don't have a blast working here, and if you don't like this after a month, then, we'll call it. So I gave it a shot, and it turns out he was right. Urology is funny and hilarious and interesting and full of really great surgeries and full of really interesting patients and huge big pool of things that I see. I never get bored. I'm always seeing new things and experiencing something new, and I've loved every second of it. What ended up happening though after I got into urology is that I was the only female urology provider in my area. I think, in a good maybe 40 miles or 60 miles, something like that. So I was the only female. I'm in a pretty heavily populated area, and so it became a women's clinic, and I started seeing a lot of women. Women just sort of flocked there because there wasn't another woman to see, and they had all these issues and hadn't had a female to talk to about them for a long time. And there I was, and eventually it turned into women's health. That's ended up being my specialty within urology. I really specialize in women's health within urology, but I tackle the broad spectrum of women's health. And I've loved that. It's been a fantastic fit for me. I didn't know that I would love it, but I do. And I still get to operate in urology, which I love. It's a beautiful thing to be in the OR. I absolutely love it. But that's why I chose my specialty. That's how I sort of fell into it. So chose it based upon what I was naturally drawn to, which was a surgical specialty. And then from there, I chose something that would fit with my lifestyle, being a wife and a mother. So next question is, what did I major in undergrad? I think I already said that. English was my major, but I also did pre-med. It wasn't technically a major, but I did all the pre-med prerequisites plus English. Do I regret doing that? No, I loved it. I loved my degree. I was able to go abroad and study in London and met a lot of really great people that way. I think your undergraduate degree is your opportunity to do something that you love and something that you may not have an opportunity to do later. I think going back in time, I may have done business. If I could go back in time, I may have done business and learned about accounting and different financial, different things in finances to help me sort of guide, engage, because my husband owns his own company, so we've had to do a lot of tax things, and trying to, sift through those waters has been a little bit interesting. So I wish I would have picked up on that younger in life. So I may have done business going back in time, but I did love English. It was a great specialty for me, or a great undergraduate degree for me. Okay, what's it like being a mom and a wife and being a PA? This is a great question, and one that I want to be very sensitive to, because like I said, everybody pictures their life to look differently, and everyone's version of happiness and fulfillment looks different. So I definitely don't want to step on anyone's toes here. I did recently see something that talked about, you can have it all, you can, be a doctor and a mom and have everything. And I think for some people that is true. You can, if you're willing to make certain sacrifices. So being a mom and being a PA has been a beautiful marriage for me. I'm able to go to work, practice medicine, do what I love, and then at the end of the day I go home. And I don't have any of the extra. I'm not in the office. I'm not required to be in the office until all hours of the night and rounding and operating, and apart from what I committed myself to do in my contract, and it's beautiful. I know what time I'm going to be there in the morning. I know what time I'm going to go home, and that's important. That's worth a lot. I think that I lucked out with the physicians that I work for. They're very understanding of me being a woman and a mother, and they get that, and I give them my best, and at the time that I'm there, I'm all theirs and I give them everything, but then when my time is done, I need to go home because I have responsibilities at home, and they fully understand that, and it's worked out really great for me. I currently work 2.5 days a week, so part-time. I was full-time up until I had a baby, so even through my whole pregnancy, I worked full-time, and then after I had a baby, I cut back to part-time. Personal decision. Again, everybody's different. That's just sort of what worked, and that worked for our financial situation, that worked for, what I wanted to be as a mom. When I have a second baby, I'm not sure that I can pull off the 2.5 days a week. It actually seems like a lot. I would like to cut back and do less. which might sound crazy to a lot of people, but there's times and there's seasons in life, and I'm in this season of being a young mom, and I don't want to miss it. That's why I didn't go to medical school. I don't want to miss it. I want to be here. I want to be around. I want to be there for every minute. And again, I don't want to step on toes, because I'm sure that there are going to be some doctors that watch this and say, I was there for everything, and if and you probably were. I just knew for me and what I could handle and what I wanted, it didn't work out for me to do that, and it works out best for me to only work a couple days a week and be home with my little girl the rest of the time, and whatever other babies are coming. So for me, being a PA and a mom has been perfect, and I couldn't imagine anything working out better. So tips for applying to PA school. Yes, I have a lot of tips for applying to PA school. It might be a separate video because this is already 20 minutes and you guys are probably getting bored. So just a few brief tips for applying to PA school. Don't let anyone fool you or lie to you. I'm going to tell you the honest truth. Everyone will tell you that it's about a lot of different things. What it's about is grades. You have to have good grades. Period. End of story. Whether you're pre-med, pre-PA, even nursing schools these days are so competitive. You need to have good grades. Period. Don't let anything else get in the way of that. Don't get yourself too busy doing all the extracurricular requirements that you let your grades slip. Grades are what's going to get you the initial interview. It's what's going to get your foot in the door. Grades are so vitally important. The second tip I would have for you is that you get clinical experience. There are a lot of schools, and more schools are requiring more and more clinical experience. And a lot of the people who are going on to be PAs and NPs and mid-levels are people who have worked in healthcare for a very long time, who are now seeking something more. So you're competing against them. You're competing against paramedics, and you're competing against EMTs, and you're competing against nurses, and you're competing against people who have been in the medical field for 20 plus years, a long time. And here you are, if this is you, a fresh undergraduate, 20-something young student who's maybe worked a little bit in an office, right? So my suggestion is that you start getting your foot in the door in clinical work as soon as possible, whether that's as a certified nurse's assistant, a CNA, which is what I was, or a medical assistant, which is an MA. And if you have something different like an EMT or paramedic, that's great too. Going back in time, if I could do it again, I probably would choose to be an MA, a medical assistant, over a CNA, just because the medical assistants work more closely with providers than the CNAs do. I worked a lot with the nurses as a CNA. I didn't work with providers, and I worked in the hospitals and changed a lot of, bedpans and sheets, and that's just part of the deal. You have to put your time in. But if I could do it over again, probably would have been a medical assistant. Had more exposure in the office. I could, get closer with some of the providers. I think that would have been an easier thing to do. So that's my tip there. So grades and clinical experience are the two tips that I have for you. The leadership, the community service, the lab experience, all of that other stuff, is it important? Yeah, you want to have a diverse application, but you can add those things in here and there. The meat and potatoes of your application will be grades and clinical experience. So, okay, I'm gonna call it. I have more questions, but I didn't plan on talking this much, and the video is gonna get long and boring. Probably already was. So if you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer anything that you have. You can direct message me at my Instagram account at Here's to Healthy Women. So HERES Healthy Women. My website is the same name. There's an email contact on there, or you can get me on Snapchat. Direct message me any questions that you have. That's how you guys did these, and it worked out great. So feel free to do those again if you have more questions, or if you want something clarified here. Again, I'm not going to edit this because I don't edit. So if it's a little bit shaky, or this is just, I'm just sitting on my bed. So very informal. Thank you for listening. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have any more questions, feel free to contact me. Best of luck to you. Bye-bye.